All right, welcome back to the Dawn.
And the Q, where we say Atari at all times. Always Atari. Keep
Yep,
Ataring. If there's an Atari
always Atari.
available, Atari. All right. Welcome back, Octo. It's nice to see you.
Thank you, thank you.
And what's
It's good to
this?
be
We
back.
have another guest here.
Very special guest.
Who is this mysterious person?
Hello.
Hello. So
Hello.
this is Max, everyone, viewers, or MX Hero of Go, as you would see him on Twitch, but we just
Well, we've
call
talked
him,
about Max before.
and we have talked about him before, but yeah, we call him Max. This is I realized I didn't ask you if this is the correct rank, but I listed you as a 5 Dan.
Yeah, that's fine. 5 Dan like KGS or whatever.
Perfect. Okay.
7 Dan Fox, if that means anything.
Ooh, that means something to
It
some
means a lot.
people. Anyways, um, Max is gonna talk to us about a very special topic today. But before we get into that, we gotta learn about Max a little bit. So, Max, how did you get into Go?
I just kind of like discovered it in high school, and it was just like a natural thing. I was like, I should try to play that game. Like, I'm interested. I just want to learn about it, and then I just kept playing. There was yeah, like nothing really particularly like drew me to the game. I just like read about it on the internet and I was like, oh, it looks beautiful, it looks interesting. So yeah, then I kept at it.
Nice. Um, the other question we tend to ask here is what. So we already got over your we went over your rank, but what is your play style, Max? How would you describe it?
Hmm. Well, on the topic of this upcoming topic here, I used to be a very thickness styled centric player, and I was like that for a long, long time, um, and kind of plateaued there. And when I came back to Go, I had a little break around the AI invasion of Go, just because I lost interest a little bit. Came back to it, and I wanted to get stronger. And then it became a little bit of a quest for me. Um, I was like, I think I'm doing this thickness thing. I might be done with it for now. Maybe it's a bit proud to say that, right? Not exactly true. But I was like, well, maybe I should just experiment with other styles. So right now I'm kind of like trying non-thickness styles, things that I don't recommend actually. So I'm on a frontier for myself with
Nice.
more influential styles.
Interesting. Okay. And then the last question is, who's your favorite pro player?
Um, I like Iyama Yuta, but for like very shallow reasons. Like I don't avidly watch like one or another pro. Uh, but whenever I do watch any of Yuta's games, I just I don't know. It's like we have a mind meld at some point in the game, and I'm just like, usually it's I look at a position and I'm not happy with it, and I'm like, okay, this is the time when I want to play a weird move, like maybe this or maybe this. Like my brain just goes like, looking for something to do, and around that time, more often than is supposed to happen, Yuta will do a similar kind of go crazy kind of move. So it kind of encourages me, maybe in the wrong way.
So you're like, basically, you guys are like drift compatible, right?
Yeah.
that that is a Pacific Rim reference for anyone who hasn't seen that. All right, cool. Well, Octo, what is our topic for today?
Well, actually, it's no coincidence that Max is here on episode 5. Why don't we just let Max tell us what the topic is?
Okay. So the one word to describe it can be the word thickness, or a word to describe it can be the number 5. And what I'll be describing for this episode is kind of let's say a method or a point of view of the game that, and this is the point of view that I kind of held like as a Go player for years, uh, rising through the low Dan ranks. So reaching KGS 3 Dan with really this method only. And so it's this, let's say, a style that is caring very much exclusively about thickness of a certain type, and then what do you do with it? And there's just a pattern that you can, as a Go player, discover maybe, or manufacture, depending on your point of view, to play games, and it can open up your mind or your eyes to different plans, different ways of thinking about how to play in a position in Go.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Wait,
Go ahead, Octo.
What does that have to do with the number 5?
It's a mystery. It's weird. Yeah, so two completely different
Here we
levels of
go.
thinking,
It's already
right?
ambiguous and vague.
Well, no, but it's so I'll be describing how we get from the number 5 to the concept of thickness, and it's like a bridge, maybe, right, from
Mm-hmm.
one idea to the other. And as a Q player, and I was doing this, thinking about it, and kind of the way that it alternates between like, okay, down on the mechanical counting level, there's 5. Okay, that means something. We'll get to that. And then it's like, okay, that kind of emerges as this high concept of thickness. And then you go back and forth as a player thinking on 2 different levels. And it's an open question for the listener, I would hope, whether this has any use at all, right? But here I am on the side that agrees with it, and I'm just here to like kind of explain it to the audience, or explain it to put it up for debate, put it up for inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
So a quick disclaimer for our audience: this episode is going to be quite cerebral compared to some of our other episodes.
Oh yeah.
Max has this delicious way of interweaving pure articulation with complete ambiguity. So it's going to be fantastic. But please
I
do
can't
your
help
best.
myself.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
So where should we start?
Well, hold on. I just also want to say that this topic, the reason why it's like special for me is like this isn't covered anywhere else. This is purely like a theory of Max's that
Original idea.
yeah, that I believe in. Octo, you believe in. Neil, do you believe in it?
I believe what stronger players say because whenever I try it, it like works even if I don't understand why. So yes, I do.
All right. Well, we're
Actually, I'll clarify and say I've never actually tried it, but I trust Max probably more than any other Go player. So
Yeah.
if he says it, I believe it.
yeah. So this episode's gonna be. Have you heard of our Lord and Savior, Max, the hero of Go? We're gonna convert
He's
everyone.
my hero of Go.
Oh boy.
So yeah, so that's why I'm excited to talk about this because it's an original topic, at least in English that I know of. I don't know if there's other languages that maybe someone has talked about it, but as far as I know, this is an original topic. So,
But no one's talked about it like this.
not like this
That's for sure.
on this podcast.
Yeah, I should add, here's my disclaimer. It can't be an original topic because I actually noticed, or I think I read somewhere one time, this idea that 5 liberties gets to a strong shape is the way that it was described in writing. And so that's an idea from literature, like from a book. But definitely the original part here is me taking this idea to the utmost limit of, well, beyond reasonability, and making it into a practice of how do we use that one very stupid tool and build a whole game of Go around it. or a whole strategy of Go. So yeah, it'll be fun to try to explain it concisely.
All right. So let's hop on over to the board. Um, so yeah, let's talk about this, Max. Let's talk about 5 liberties.
Okay, so the whole schema, the whole theory, is 2 different, completely different parts, but it's only 2 parts, and I call them the rule of 5, and then the other one is the one proverb or the only proverb. So let's first talk about the rule of 5. It's the much easier one to believe in what it means, and it's simply a definition of thickness. And that we're going to use that definition in the only proverb, and we'll go back and forth. So the rule of 5 says if a chain of stones, and to be clear, let's remember that I'm making some little moves here. So a chain of stones have to be connected, right? That's the one thing. We know that a chain must be directly connected stones. So black having Q16 and P16 is a chain, but white having D16 and C15, that's a Kosumi relation. That's not a chain of stones. That's 2 chains. So I'm referring to a chain of stones here. And so the rule of 5 says if a chain of stones has 5 or more liberties, then it's thick. And if a chain of stones has 4 or fewer liberties, then it's thin. And that's it. That's the whole rule. So it's defining thickness and thinness by counting liberties and only counting liberties.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are probably some niche examples of this, but like, where players are taught that the Kasumi is like, it's connected, right? So like you could imagine that they have more liberties than, like the D16 stone technically has 4 liberties, but if it connects, there's technically more, right? But can you explain why it doesn't apply here to the rule of 5? Like just very high level, because I know there's probably some good examples.
Basically because of Tesujis, right? Tesujis being skillful moves that are surprising, that are more effective than you'd expect the move to be locally. Tesujis can happen in relation to a Kosumi shape, a diagonal shape. And the easiest example is everyone likes playing the kick against an approach. I'll play it here. This is a perfectly fine Joseki on the bottom right, and this P3 is a Kosumi, and it's a kick, and then later on in the game or whatever, one of many Tesujis is going to be R3 for white, and ultimately this is going to be making black's liberties here definitely fewer than we'd expect. And most Tesujis are actually, if you really look at them, they're all about liberties. They're all about, like a squeeze Tesuji is definitely about liberties, because you can do a capture or repeated Ataris. Ladders are about liberties. Nets are about liberties. All of the Tesujis are about liberties. And the Kosumi is susceptible to Tesujis, where the iron pillar shape is absolutely not susceptible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So, all right. So now we have the definition of thick versus thin.
Yep.
Now, how does that apply to like the game? What's next?
So at this very point, if that's all we know, then given a game position and you're playing it, all you can do, and it seems very stupid, right? This seems very useless, uninteresting, but you can do something. You can start to see and identify which of your stones are thick, which of them are thin, and your opponent's stones, same thing. You can look and you can count and you can figure it out. You can just identify where thickness and thinness is. But that's clearly not enough. We don't have nearly enough to decide what to do, because very practically, right, you're playing a game of Go, you have to come up with a move. You have to play something when it's your turn. So this is where the only other part of the system shows up, the only proverb. And it gives you a direction. And really it does so in a way that's very wise and also very hard to understand. It's a wise thing. It's meant to be, as all proverbs are, very difficult to interpret. But I'll tell you what it is. So the one proverb is play away from thickness. And that's it. So it's a very almost I'd say like an avant-garde way of thinking about Go, because it's so minimalist that it's easy to assume or believe that there's no way that these two tools, these two ideas can interplay enough to give a person, like a full human being, enough to work with to play a game of Go. But actually, there's enough, and there's enough through the low down ranks, probably through the mid down ranks, just on those ideas. It's harder. You should probably use more when you're Don level, but at Q level, this is enough to become Don, if you're careful when you think about this.
Yeah.
So wait a minute.
Go ahead.
These Blackstones here, I'm counting 6 Liberties. Are we saying 2 Blackstones that are connected are thick? That's all
Yes.
it takes?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, even better than that, right, would be if there's a shoulder hit, then even when you answer as black the shoulder hit, immediately that's 5 Liberties. That's already thick. So again, this means very little. Like we can't, I don't want to make it sound like we've solved anything just by this definition here, but this is the boundary this is the thickness boundary that we're talking about. It's very close to the start of a development of an area, right? It just takes 3 stones locally, E3, shoulder hit, and standing up, and we have thickness. Very natural shape here that happens in a game all the time.
Yeah, and that it kind of
goes.
Go ahead, Neil.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
What? Okay, I was just gonna ask. Like, does that mean that typically white should not respond to this 6?
No. And this is, of course, where even though this is where all I can say is that proverbs are very mysterious, right? The proverb, if you interpret it in a very literal way, it's going to be impossible to use it as a direction of play tool for you, because you'll quickly run out of things to do on the board, right? If you're totally afraid, if you're perfectly avoiding thickness all the time, you're going to be cornered. You can just imagine like how this might work, right? You're going to be like, oh, my opponent and I are making thickness everywhere. I'm going to Tanuki like play so many different places, and accidentally I'll be thick there too, and then I have to, dart around, and it'll be chaos. So there's still, so it seems like there's something else you need at first glance. But actually, once you have a reading skill, which I'm not discarding this as something you want to develop as a Go player, but the reading skill, even as complicated and interesting as it is, can still be informed by ideas of thickness and the counting to 5 that you can do when looking at the position, right? So the real idea locally with the shoulder hit is the fact that black is already thick makes white much more interested in playing a light move like the jump here, rather than the very decided kind of not orthodox move of F5. So just to kind of narrate the two ideas, generally because white is admitting that black is thick already, white says, okay, then I'll be the light one. I'll be thin, but I'll be light.
I see. Okay.
And the other way,
sense.
which is much more, this is choosing in a real game of Go, this would be choosing where the middle game is happening. White can be saying, no, I understand black that you're thick, but I'm going to actually start to be thick myself because I'm claiming as white, this is the boundary of the board. Like this is the real, the strategic boundary, not the territorial boundary. This is the place where I want to fight and win some extra stuff. So I will make thickness here too, and we will scramble for whatever this actually means as a battlefield.
Gotcha. Okay. that definitely helps.
Yeah, so then kind of building off of like the shoulder hit here, and this kind of goes back to the anti-proverb at the beginning of the show. That's why it's like if we were to just maybe say like, place a stone down like a Tengen and then attach and then Hane crosscut, or here, Max, yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
here, I'll give you yeah, take control. Take control.
Wait, did I have it back?
Let me try to. Oh, here, I can give you.
Nice.
There you go.
Okay. So like if we look at something like this, like by Atariing right away, it's helping black get closer to, the 5 liberties. And let's say like white does it again.
Yep.
Now, you could easily say, well, yeah, this is a problem because there's all these cutting points, but like trying to simplify it down to like talking about liberties, the 7 stone has 2 liberties, 9 has 2 liberties, 11 has 3, 13 has 3, but like, again, quickly, let's say white wouldn't do this, but like let's say white plays away. As soon as black plays something like this, and let's say white extends, black is a bit thicker here and can gain more liberties because he's harassing these stones, and white still has issues on, every side of the board. And maybe I didn't explain that well, but Max, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you want to add to that.
Let me supplement that. Usually, the argument against these Ataris is thinking about the crosscut, the cutting points that white is leaving behind, right? And that's very good, a good idea, a good argument against it. But in this topic, actually, the cutting points don't matter. It's only about the liberties that white is giving to black. That's the reason, from this point of view, why the Ataris are bad. It's a weird idea because you want to conventionally, like as if you're more than 10Q, if you're stronger than 10Q, you're going to know that these cutting points are a problem, but not from the thickness point of view. It's only the liberty counts, right? Yes, white's shape is going to collapse here because the cutting points they're not helping, but here it's just the fact that black has 3 and 3, and white has 3 and 3 and 2 and 2. That 2 and 2 of liberty counts is that's the problem.
Got it. So I know you're talking about 5, but like why not like 6 liberties? Like we see the iron pillar has 6 right there. Why are you saying like 5 exactly? And why can't it be like 4 liberties?
Right. Yeah, very good normal question, because it seems like 5 kind of just fell out of the sky. and it's like what's the reason? 2 different points of view to get to that number, right? The first one is more of a plausibility idea, but I like it. I think it's very good. If white just plays, or any player plays a stone anywhere,
Gonna give you back control.
it has 4 liberties. Oh yeah, sorry. It has 4 liberties. Yeah, any stone, right? Not in the corners, but 4. So if the point of having a name, thickness, and thickness being that it's having fewer, like 0 shape problems, that is, it cannot be Tsuji'd and the shape get destroyed in that way. The assumption here, and it's just true empirically, you can just check the shapes and check all the Josekis, is that like that's being thick is enough to prevent all of the shape problems. But how do you stay thick even if your opponent starts poking at you? Well, if a single stone that the opponent would add to the position is only going to have at the maximum 4 liberties, then if you have 1 more than that already, 5, then you're defended. You're defended by liberty count against any new invader, or any new, it's a bad word because we have the word invasion for something else, any new aggressor, right? So you're already built up 1 more of this resource, liberties, than any new occurrence. And it's a plausibility argument. It seems reasonable that would be enough to keep you 1 move ahead in a fight. That's one way.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can take kind of like the scientific approach, right? And you can look at, and I'd like to show a very good example in a Joseki, very famous Joseki that everyone probably knows or ought to know. And it shows this exactly about 5. And so it's very common. We have the 4/4, and then we have the knight's move approach, and then we have really any pincer at all, but we'll do the one space low pincer because it's the most normal for this kind of continuation. And then we have white taking the 3/3 point. And we just have, I'll play out the Joseki first because we probably have all played this hundreds or thousands of times. I'll even make the little AI adjustment here of S14 instead of R15 because it doesn't really matter for this purpose. And then white plays O17 to finish the shape. Okay, so there is a lesson in thickness in this exact Joseki, and I'll explain it right now. If we go back a few moves to here, black has just played the extension to make it 3 in a row. And white would maybe like to be able to jump ahead of that and play O17, excuse me. But we know because of just the facts of the shape that there's a punishing sequence where it's basically white is too thin. And we're not counting to 5 yet. We're not needing to use that yet. I'm just going to show the general wisdom is one thing that black can do is push through and cut and then capture the corner. And it's not great for white. It's a little bit of a mistake. The shape kind of broke and black proved it. And it's not Joseki. So to backtrack, of course, white has a way to resolve the problem by playing the kind of sacrifice sequence. This is sacrificing some of the Aji of R14, and then black protects. And now, by reading through all the stuff, we can see that all of those attempts that black previously had with cutting are not going to do anything. Now, I just said all of this without counting to 5. But if we look at what happened here, that's exactly what the sequence has done. White has 5 liberties now. And we say 5 because black can always push through, and even though it's a bad move. But given that push, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 liberties. And so there we have it. Like, this is one example of somehow 5 is enough to avoid the shape, the Tsuji that black would have. And in the example without adding those exchanges, in this case, 3 is not enough. And in fact, with 3 liberties for white is getting Tsuji'd out of the position. So then it's like, okay, it's more than 3 and it's fewer than, or it's 5 or fewer. And you can look at other examples to see that it really is very close to 5 liberties that you need. Very often 4 liberties is going to be not enough, and there will be a cutting sequence or a squeeze or a net. But you have to, like, there are infinitely many sequences. We can't look at all of them, but if you look at enough of them, I think you'll just discover on your own, wow, 5 is pretty good.
Max,
pretty good guess.
I just realized a good comparison of like you talking about 5 is, do you guys remember that movie? I think it was called like 22. I think it was with Nicolas Cage. Where like
23.
No.
Oh, was it 23? Yeah, it's like
That was Jim Carrey.
It was Jim Carrey. Okay, thank you. Yeah, but like this guy, like,
that's right.
he's like, he realizes that there's patterns because of the number 23, and he's like freaking out. He's like, see, look, 23, it's there again. And so you just did that. You're like, I didn't count to 5, but if you do count to 5, if you do count the liberties, it's 5. See, 5 is there.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is what you've actually done here is you've demonstrated a different utility for counting to 5, which is actually the original one you first gave. I think both of us, how a group or just a position that can work its way up to 5 liberties is potentially safe enough for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're not necessarily making a statement about thickness. It's really, or it can be used as a statement of security.
Yeah. And I think you like had brought up, Max, that like if you have 5 liberties, I mean, obviously it means it's going to take 5 moves to capture that group of stones. And like the issue is that if you have 4 liberties, it's like, oh, well, it's 4 moves. It's like, yeah, but the issue is that, let's say they remove a liberty, so now you're down to 3, and it's like, if you ignore that and then they take away another liberty, now it's down to 2, and it's like, okay, now it's kind of urgent. Whereas with 5, you know, I mean, it sounds simple when I say it, but it's like, if they take away a liberty and you Tanuki and ignore it, and they try and take away another liberty, it's like, well, you still have 3 liberties. Like, you can come back and do something. Meanwhile, you just gained a move across the board.
Yeah. hmm From that thinking, then it turns into, if the question is why is it not 6? Why is it 5 and not 6? Well, then technically, here's a little secret. In some positions, 6 is good. Like, you want to have 6 liberties. It means you can Tanuki one more time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with that mutual destruction kind of point of view, you can actually then use that as that's your asset. That's your resource you're using. You're like, oh, I have a superly abundant number of liberties here. Like, this is 8 liberties. So I'm going to, and you can see professional players do this all the time. They're like, I'm too thick. I'm going to play everywhere else. And then my opponent is going to eventually have to reduce me, but I'm going to ignore every single time they reduce me because I have so many liberties. And that's a way to trade off the thickness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very obvious interpretation of play away from thickness, right? It's a really extreme version of that, where it's like, I'm not going to do anything near that.
Yeah, it's crazy because, like, there have been some games where I've done that, where, like, either I have 5 liberties and I realize, oh, I can Tanuki because I'm thick in this position, I'm safe enough, or, like, I have a ton of liberties and my opponent's trying to attack it, and I'm like, okay, have fun. I'm gonna go do something else, and then they continue to attack it, and I'm like, I'm still gonna continue to do something else, and I eventually throw away those stones, because my opponent really tried to kill those stones, and I'm like, by all means, go ahead, but, like, I gained a lot more out of it, and that's kind of a difficult thing, I think, to grasp as, like, a DDK or, like, a high SDK player, is, like, using that, like, string of stones as a means to do other things, because your opponent's like, I'm going to kill these stones, and you're like, cool, that's fun.
Yeah, it's very complicated. It becomes complicated, and I would say that as soon as that's actually happening, as soon as you are, like, you're following along in this theory, like, you're building the theory of 5 of thickness, that's you doing that, right? Like, you're doing that at that point, and that's fun and that's cool. And what that means is there's a lot of unexpected things about proverbs, many of them, but in this case, the only proverb, the one that we're talking about, that you'll just have to discover. And it just, the multifaceted ways and unexpected ways, like guaranteed unexpected ways that you can find an application of these ideas in games, in real games, like in the wild. It's cool. And that's kind of like the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to disclaim this even more, I hope that the listener, the audience, is, like, never misunderstanding where I'm coming from here. I'm not here, like, trumpeting, like, the truth of 5. I'm not saying that you're supposed to do this with all of your stones. In
Yes,
fact,
you are. You are our Lord and Savior, Max.
This is a theory.
it is, yeah, it's a thing to play with, and then when you do, all that I will say with certainty is, if you actually are trying this yourself, I do guarantee that you'll be interested and kind of amazed in your own way with, like, what it means, right? And then you're building that. You're building your own follow-up discussion about this as a Go player, or you're communicating it, like we're talking about this, so it's obviously able to be discussed. But the mysteries of the proverbs are very, very many, way more than we could ever count.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun.
Okay,
So,
I have a
go ahead,
question
Neil.
as well. Well, okay. My question is, if you wanted to take this approach and start using it, like let's say you're like, okay, I'm converted to the Church of Max,
Sure.
and I'm ready to go out on my own and mess around with five liberties and with the one proverb. Like, how can you explain like how you would tell someone, to start that process? Because obviously, if you just go in and you're like, okay, this has five liberties, I'm going to play away from it, then that probably wouldn't work, as you said. But so, is there any way you can give us like some more nuance as to like how you start deciding like when to actually like pay close attention to the five liberties and the thickness?
Yes. The for like from a practical point of view, let's say a Q player, like maybe an 8Q, would be interested in like, oh, let me try this. What I would say to them is, first of all, just because I know how Go players are, if you're an 8Q, you're leaning on the side of you're playing too thin, too many thin moves. You're not playing too many thick moves. That's just kind of what I've seen. So what's going to happen is I would say to the 8Q, hey 8Q, um, try this, and actually I want you to play in this way, build like pick it as long as you like the stones that you have, and you like, by the way, most of the stones you play, you like them as in they're heavy for you, like you actually want to keep them alive. Any stones you like, you should make them all have five liberties.
Okay.
Like, no, it doesn't mean if you're white here and you play like you're in closure or you play your 4/4. I'm not saying you should be ever playing the Iron Pillar, right? But what I mean is, as soon as something starts happening, right? Um, like this, find a way to either give yourself five liberties or make it safe, right? Um, in a real game, you have to schmooze it a little bit. I still don't recommend, like, you shouldn't be playing a solid connection here. There are still things you just have to know are, oh, this is way too thick. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 liberties. So it's like a hint. It's like, okay, let's do a little further away here. And
Mm.
it's still covering the cut. Okay, so there's still a room here for creativity, but the idea is the same. It's like, okay, these are now stones that I like, and now they're thick enough. They're strategically thick. They're not tactically countably thick, but they're thick enough for now. And that's something that a lot of players just omit at 8Q level. What they're going to do instead, they're going to just um, do this. They'll play away too soon, and then black is going to attack in the future, and it's going to be a mess. And eventually, the 8Q is going to have a problem. Too thin, too thin. So I'm going to say to the 8Q, really, actually, even if you don't believe it at all, play these moves. It's going to feel very slow for you. You're going to think that you're falling behind. And the goal is for you to actually lose a few games, maybe many games, lose like 10 games where it's actually because, and you believe this, it's because you're playing too thickly.
Mm.
That's really hard to do.
Guilty of that. I've done that.
That's impressive. Like, it's an achievement. It actually is. It you can it's an extreme kind of practice where you're trying to do the bad thing until it's bad, and then you can finally characterize for yourself like what actually is bad about this. It's never it's never bad in the exact way you can predict, because by definition, if it were, you wouldn't have to practice it. So that's what I would tell an 8Q. Like, okay, you're probably playing too thin. Play thick, really get to five liberties. And once you get to five, Tanuki,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's about five. It's not about seven. It's not about 10. And try it. And it's weird because I agree, Neil. This is not gonna feel like it's productive, right?
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's totally outside of most people's worldview of Go, right? It's almost embarrassingly simple. Like, how is this Don level player like telling me a lie that this is what you're supposed to do? Um, but it's very close to being true, and you have to just try it to find that out.
Yeah, something that
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
something that I've kind of experimented with, because I mean, Max, we've talked about Five Liberties for months now, um, and I think it's actually a way that it's helped me get to 6Q. Is that like when responding to like attachments of any sort, or like close contact play, I tend to favor an extension versus a Hane because I'm thinking about thickness and strength. And so I'm like, okay, I can use this to then attack. Whereas what I kind of see from some Q players is like, they follow the proverb of like, oh, respond to like an attachment with a Hane or something like that. But that can create issues in itself. One, because of a cutting point, but also lack of liberties. And so like, and then even in the case of like, if I try to like invade or do something like in my opponent's territory, I might attach to a stone, they'll Hane, and then instead of like Hane, maybe I'll extend with the intent of like, okay, I'm starting to make this, it's now heavy, I'm trying to create thickness, and I'm going to use thickness to attack, because it's kind of going back to, if 5 liberties means thickness, well, what do we know about thickness? You use it to attack, you play away from thickness. And I've also used 5 liberties as almost like a guiding light in positions where I'm like, what the heck do I do on this board? And it's like, all right, well, where is thickness? Well, what is thickness? Thickness is 5 liberties. And then I look at like spots where I'm like, okay, I don't want to play over here because this is too thick, or oh, this spot has some issues because it's lacking some liberties. And maybe like I can't find the exact correct sequence, but at least I can identify that there's some issue here, and maybe it'll become clear to me at some point. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I need to review it and kind of go over it. But usually I'm somewhat right of like, okay, there is somewhat of an issue. I just don't know how to execute on it.
So that's a good segue that I want to backtrack on something and be argumentative for a minute. Because Max had made a statement earlier about thickness and direction of play. It kind of sounded like thickness is not really determining direction of play, although I would argue it's intrinsically determining direction of play. But I think what you actually were saying was based on this definition. As we've seen, a chain of 2 stones satisfies thickness, but we really shouldn't be afraid of 2 stones. So not approaching it is almost a counterexample to the proverb of play away from thickness. So here's where I'm actually going with this. Would you be willing to say that in the case of like those 2 stones, 5 liberties is the beginning of thickness?
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
or
like it's still true, of course, that like if you have more than 5, you're still thick. And then the only reason why we're not happy to have like 20 liberties is because we know that it would have taken a long time, many moves to get there. And there's a regret, right? There's like a, wait, I could have done more then with that. But it's still thick. Yeah, anything 5 or more would be thickness. I think yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Right. Can you pass me control? Because I want to
Yeah.
I want to put some different versions of thickness on the board, just so we can get a different perspective here. So kind of in line with what we were looking at before, I'm going to play a fairly modern sequence here. We'll just go ahead and play that one. Let's keep black. Yeah, let's play my favorite 5/4 Joseki. Love this guy.
Mr. Joseki man over here. Never seen this Joseki in my life.
I have shown you this Joseki so many different times. So here, I think most thick shapes can be boiled down to 2 flavors. One of which is going to have this very like strong wall like shape, and the other one is going to be kind of globular in shape. And just by the nature of them, they actually have slightly different properties. This wall is really only facing one direction, or it's emanating power in one direction, whereas we could say maybe the glob is kind of facing multiple directions at once, but it doesn't feel quite the same, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably easy for us to see how the wall fits into 5+ liberties. What about this globular shape? What would you say about this in terms of thickness?
The first interesting thing is that very, very technically, the top left isn't even the black position isn't even thick in the exact, chain by chain
Right.
counting way, right?
Right.
That's the first little clue.
I
Although I
specifically
would
chose
say,
this.
yeah. You at first I was like he omitted this peep that's very common. It's almost like a mannerism that White's going to play E14 peep right away. But it's
Right.
good. It's smart that you omitted it because we're left wondering, like, what does this mean? So without that peep played, which could be an Ajukeshi peep for White.
Sorry,
Without the
really
peep,
quick.
there's
What is
thinness.
Ajikeshi?
Oh, thank you. Ajukeshi means like aji is, like little aftertastes or a little taste in a position, stuff that you can do, and keshi means to like erase. Usually kind of like in a squandering way, like you're getting rid of it for no good reason. You're just kind of like wasting the aji. Um, so aji, yeah,
I would call
ajukeshi meaning the
Aji
peep isn't worth it to get that aji extracted in that way. Better to save it.
for like a true newbie, I would say that like the way to describe Aji is it's like a stone or stones with potential that are not necessarily like able to do something, right now, but they have the potential to like cause trouble, basically.
Yeah.
Another prime example of Ajikeshi, which Max has actually already demonstrated on the board previously with that other pincer, Max said, "Oh, pushing through the weakness in White shape is bad." The reason why it's bad is because you're closing off possibilities, which is Ajikeshi. Right? You might have had other opportunities to do something special there, but by you pushing in, White just seals it off. It's a done deal. Okay. So let me put one more position on the board. This is going to kind of emphasize something I talk about on my stream quite a bit. These black stones here, I have a funny little name for this. I call it micro thickness. Because by comparison to this giant black wall in the upper right, it just feels leaving something to be desired, right? It's where's the power, right? We have 6 liberties here. Where is the power in my quote unquote thickness?
Good question. I enjoy leaving this group of blacks unextended off of. I like to omit K4.
You monster.
It fits my style as like when I play the thickness style, right? When I play this particular kind, I like making the game about the fact that this group is not going to die, and the reason that it's not going to be even attackable in any productive way is tactically using the thickness, the liberties, finding a way in the skirmishing to convert those liberty advantages into, okay, White, your attack didn't work, or you attacked too soon and now I can counterattack. All those things, right? So it's a very this position being micro thickness. For me, it cues me into as a thickness player to make it into a micro battling area. Very, very picky, very, kind of irritating stones that White should probably not mess around with for a while.
Okay. One more thing I want to squeeze out of this position that you and I have talked offline about before. I will see. I'll see this Joseki in the bottom left played all the time, and then even if there's almost nothing going on in the top left, right? Maybe the beginnings of a Joseki, maybe just 1 or 2 stones, or maybe a very quick, simple Joseki. All of a sudden, I'll see someone approaching White's stones right here. Isn't this kind of counter to the proverb, "Don't approach thickness"?
this is a very good example. It definitely looks like that. And but I'll say actually no, it's using this proverb in a at a smaller scale than the global scale. So locally, what's going on is, okay, let's look at what this F4 chain or group actually is. Actually, right now, it's still just a chain. The way that black is treating those stones right now, they're just there to be thick. They're not there to be alive in the future. So what C8 is doing is it's saying, okay, white, if you're going to cut me apart, if you're going to play a move like, I don't know, white D7 or E6, some kind of imperfect move. There's no good move, by the way, for white locally. Whatever white does, we know that that move white is answering with is going to be closer to this E4 thickness than black's instigating move of C8 is. And so in a lot of positions on the globally on the board, when black plays this, black is saying, okay, the left side has become so good that I'm going to be pushing kind of like tangentially white as close to my thickness as possible. Not attacking, right? White's perfectly alive here, but the shape is getting smushed as close to these to this thick chain here as possible. So it's still using the idea of play away from thickness, and it's still considering the thick position on the bottom as a resource, right? So like I have counted to 5. I'm happy with that. I'm going to use that right now in a small scale way.
I would actually say black it it's a misunderstanding of the proverb itself. Even based on everything we've talked about between chains of stones and how the Kosomi isn't satisfying that, we don't quite even have 5 liberties on any of those groups. The mistake was assuming that white is thick. White is strong,
Yeah, right.
which is not
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yep.
So this is another nuance that's so important. Especially like in the middle game of something, is something thick or is it strong? If it's just strong, we could probably get pretty close to it. And there are, like B5 here, this common placement to Suji idea is sort of exposing slight defects in white's shape. Even though we consider this to be a strong group, this corner isn't going to die, right? That's almost the definition of strong here. It's just not going to die, but it's not thick.
Yeah, can you pass me control? Because I think this is so important for those who are rising through the queue ranks. Is that exactly what you said? This B5 is like, I mean, I don't know if the correct word is Tsuji. Would that be correct in this?
Yeah.
I would consider it a
is-
placement Tsuji.
Okay.
Yeah, when it's played at the right time, it's Tsuji.
So like, as a Q player, like I would say around DDK, maybe high SDK, I always just kind of thought like, this is all mine. And I'm pretty sure it was a game against you, Neil, that I first learned about this placement to Suji, and I was so mad. I was so mad because you play here, and or here, let me. I want to fix this tree actually. We'll say this. Yeah, you played here, and if you don't know, let's say you're like, well, I'm not going to allow black to connect back up. This is now actually exploiting the fact that white is lacking 5 liberties. So let's say black is pushing through and black wants to connect up at D5 and white says, no, I don't want to allow that. And then black says, okay, well, now I'm threatening to cut at C3. And so white says, well, no, I don't want you to cut there. And then all of a sudden, boom, the stone is laddered or netted, whatever the case. And so then if white tries to come back and do that, well, then black cuts. And now it's a choice of, well, white's gonna descend and capture those stones, but then black comes back this way and captures these 2 stones, and now it just kind of sucks all together. So basically white has to just say, okay, that's going to connect back up. You block, black connects, and now this corner is much smaller. But this is very important to learn as a cube player, because, or I guess anyone really, but I'm sure as a Don you would already know this. But there's issues, and it's not all yours because you don't have 5 liberties. 5 is the magic number, everyone. See? Number 23, it's there. 5, it's there again. 5 liberties.
Interestingly, as soon as you do this, though, the idea flips immediately, and now white is thick.
Mhm.
So that's using the Aji, right? But it's only using the Aji, and we only have like a way of talking about this idea of like we've now characterized what it looks like and how it counts for you to use Aji up, right? To consume it. And we're like, oh, okay, now white's thick. It's because we are talking in a context here where we're giving a word and a concept to this thickness and the tactical counting to 5 thing. Without that, we wouldn't notice, or we couldn't like categorize this as like, oh, now I can see something's been used up. White has been given something in this exchange because white has. It's still a trade.
Mm-hmm.
This whole, because I feel like we've all had our own sort of questions and thoughts about this, and the thing that I just can't help but think about when we talk about the thickness idea and the 5 liberties is how a lot of times when I watch like mid and high Don players, I am just amazed at groups that they will like Tanuki that look like they're about to die. And I'm assuming that like a part of that plays into this, which is that there's an understanding about what is around that, quote unquote weak group and how weak it is, and like what resources exist. But that's the thing I'm most interested in terms of, exploring this idea is what can I get away with if I trust more in the 5 liberties, the gospel of the 5 liberties.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one that should, in a similar way, I guess I was saying earlier about how at the 8Q level, I would be ecstatic to see an 8Q play so thickly that they actually lose a game many, many times because they were too slow. And it's an achievement, right? To do that. But at maybe like the 1Q, 1 Don level, the achievement might be something else. It might be to find a way to make a thick group and finally have your opponent kill it successfully. And then just wait for it. It still has to be a bad enough death that you lose that game. And that's an achievement. And so like I know that when I was low Don, I didn't even conceive of setting up a group to be sacrificed because I'm like, well, there's no way I can allow that. It's too big. And only when I kind of gave myself the permission to, okay, let's just see what happens. Like maybe it lives, maybe it dies. I can't read everything.
Mhm.
I believe it's thick. I can use that. I can use the liberties. I can trade the thickness to the outside. All these techniques that they attach themselves to this idea, and you can develop these. Okay, and eventually I died big. It's like, okay, that was too far, and it was many many times. Those were bad, too thick and then too thin at the end, and it was bad. But all of the technique that I learned in those failures, um, it's just mind-boggling. It's like, wow, you can really leave those stones, like for example, F3 stones. You can leave those alone for the whole game. You can make the whole game about when are they going to die?
Yeah, I really think that there's something about the experience of testing certain limits that it's hard to replace that with any sort of lesson because sometimes I've been told by stronger players like, oh, take the outside, and I'm like, well, how am I going to get any points. I just have this wall on the outside. And I've had to really just kind of trust that idea and play around with it. And a lot of times I'll just notice, like, I don't know what happened, but like for some reason I won, Like I don't actually understand why me taking the outside caused me to win, but clearly, I'm starting to touch on an idea that's like, okay, there's a usefulness that's hard to quantify. And by sort of playing around with it, you kind of get to a point where maybe you don't have to quantify it. Maybe you just trust that it works, and in time, you kind of understand better and better, like how it works. But, you might not even need to understand like exactly how it works. It might just be enough to have the experience and the intuition to say like, it's going to work, so I'm going to do it.
I would
Dude.
actually argue it's on the board right now. If we look at the two top groups, we've taken the outside position, right? In that process, we have encapsulated those white groups into their respective territories. They are essentially cut off from the rest of the board, from the rest of the game. They will serve no more purpose. They're trapped for, yeah, I mean, like there's technically some stuff that can happen, but the whole idea of actually taking the outside and surrounding, you suddenly are pointing power toward multiple directions of the rest of the board. You are in so much control, whereas those white stones have served their purpose and they are done.
Yeah. So I actually want to. So we have this board here. This is actually we've been using a review as part of a demo board, but I actually
Right,
wanted to go
sorry.
over some positions from a game that I played against another SDK. For those of you who don't know, it was On the Locks, Twitch streamer. Shout out to him. Great stream. Check him out sometime. But sorry, I passed control to you, Max, but if I can take it back. Because I want to talk about
sure,
really
yeah.
quick, like this, kind of like what you were talking about, Neil, of like, I people say take the outside, then it's like, how do I make points? And it's like kind of tough to believe. And I'm just going to fast forward through the game here. Ooh, and it already happened. But like, just as an example here, I know that like the Q, 17 stones are thick, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, technically they're not, but I know with playing R18, like they're they're all of a sudden thick, right? But like Locks plays this move against me, and I already know like I don't care about this. My intent was not to be making points with this, like between like this area. So this doesn't mean anything to me. Plus, because I have thickness nearby, I know like I can still kind of harass this stone. And so then like, I just kind of jump and I'm like, okay, we'll try and make some points here, whatever. Um, game goes on, whatever. But this is like kind of like using that idea of like just trust in the thickness. You have to believe, which is so scary of like, well, what's gonna happen? It's so easy to just take the points and be like, okay, I know what I have. But like when you have this influence and thickness, you're like, I don't know what I have. And you have this higher level player being like, no, this is good, trust it. And you're like, what? You're telling me to walk in the darkness. And they're like, yeah, isn't it great? You don't know what's out there. And you're like, no, this is terrifying. You're like, I could just all of a sudden die. And they're like, yeah, but you could also find gold. And you're like, what are you talking about? So, anyways, the part of the game that I want to jump to is actually right here. So in the game, what I played, there's a lot of other things happening on the board, but what I want to focus on here, and what I kind of talked about with Max, is this L17 move, and it being about trying to convert these points and protect this area. But Max, you said you didn't like that move, and I know there's kind of another issue on the board, but it kind of spawned a conversation about Five Liberties all of a sudden, and so
Yeah.
talk to me about why you don't like L17. And here I'll pass you control.
So yeah, so let's not even judge the global direction, because I think it's a good idea anyway to solidify the top territory. Let's focus on the intent of L17 to clear up the position, and black is claiming, I have territory here. I'm gonna, it's a big early end game move. I'm going to start solidifying, consolidating is a good word, my territory. And there's a tactical error here that I would say is like maybe at the 1Q level, it would be detected pretty often, and at like a 2-dan level, it should be obvious that white should do something kind of locally to punish this. And so the thing that white can do very easily is to hane at E18. And so the conversation here in words would be, black just said, I have this territory. And white is going to say, no, you have this territory. And either white can tanuki now, or white can keep going. Honestly, black really does need to answer this move too.
Mm-hmm.
And now L17 looks very out of place. It was trying to surround something, but now the actual shape of the territory would have been finished with K16.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a view here where you can say that L17 is functioning as a pass move.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only because of one tactical miss that black didn't see.
And sorry,
so
just for like the lower level players, why can't black respond with F18 to E18?
I'm sorry, very good question. Thank you. It is because of this weakness with the Atari and then the Atari here. So white can just capture the double hane stone, and there's not enough of a problem in the corner, and we're going to get to that very soon. But let's show how white having sufficiently many liberties here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of like 5, kind of like 4, if we're being very, very honest here, but it's still enough to not have any problem. So black is going to be having a tantrum here. Black's like, no, there must be something for me. And white is going to be able to say, no, there's not anything for you, because all of this is just dead. And so what black cannot invade the corner, black cannot capture stones, nothing of white's gets cut off. All of the things, all of the good things are happening for white. And that's, you can chalk it up to, this is what it looks like when you have a good shape, when you have then enough liberties and you're thick enough. So this is what allows white to punish how thin black is, and there are no repercussions for that coming back to white. And there you go. So that is the tactical reason why F18 isn't working. But this is on a very boundary of what could be a very interesting fight in the corner. And so this is what leads us to the preparation move, kind of like a, not, I wouldn't say inducing, but it's a move, a little sente exchange, a Kakashi maybe. It's a well-timed.
What does Kakashi mean?
Yes, yeah. Kakashi is, it feels a lot like a completely free move that you want to play at the right time, and when you do, it's sente, and you got something that you can believe in. You got a real reward for it. So we're gonna establish what the
commonly called a forcing move.
Yeah,
yes.
well, yeah, but the forcing moves tend to be not as refined as the Kakashi. Like the Kakashi is like, it needs to be timed perfectly, and it needs to be meaningful. It needs to be doing the thing you want. Forcing moves could just be like a shoulder hit, push the stones around and like get a shape. This is more, as I'll show, a very specific liberty aware move.
So before you play the move, Max, because we've talked about it, so I know it. Neil and Octo have not seen it, so I want to see.
True.
Let's test them.
We'll quiz.
Let's test them. So I guess following like the same idea, or like trying to prepare for L17, if we know that the issue is around E18, what should the move be for black?
I guess I'll go first, since I'm the slightly weaker of the two players. I'm gonna just go like, full 5 liberties and say E18.
Okay, that's a very good guess.
I
However,
think
yeah.
yeah, I think the idea is actually to reduce liberties. So I was wondering if D18 would suffice enough, because even after something like C18, the sequence doesn't quite work the same way.
Yeah. Yep. That
Yeah.
is right.
So really quick note, Neil, my cube brother, later on later on in the game, I play E18 with the thought of like 5 thickness plus like monkey jump in the corner, whatever. But
Right.
of course the frickin' Don here finds finds the move.
Yeah. Now I'm also
I
going
had a
to
big
show how
hint.
there's. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true. There were hints, but also it's going to be fun to show now
Mm-hmm.
that even though D18 looks like the thin move, it's actually aware of the concept of thickness, and it's using it to Black's advantage here
Mm-hmm.
to do something and to get the Kakashi. So we're going to look at well, first the argument I'm going to make is that it's Sente, right? Now this is we're
Mm-hmm.
going to postpone that argument. We're just going to agree that it is first. And if it is, then when Black plays L17, this is what Octo is talking about. Now the idea of E18 for White is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if White ever, in the future, White will play this move. Black does get to play F18, and it is locally a Sente move, right? It's an Atari. And so White would have to capture, and then Black can connect in some
Mm-hmm.
way. And Black has sealed off the territory,
Yes,
which is
let's
consistent with the idea of L17.
so pause for a second. So
Mm.
viewers, look at this position, and then can you flash back to the second diagram where it's move 85? It's
Yeah. This one.
yes.
Oops.
Oh, not that
Let's
one.
play
One
the
above
not
that
blunder
one.
here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now you see this position, and then if you go to the other one, you can see how much more territory that Black is gonna have. And like this like kind of blew my mind because like I wouldn't have found D18 for the pure fact that I'm like, well then they get E18 and then I still have to play F18, and it's like, no, it's different because now I get to patch up in in Gote, but it's good Gote, which is a whole other topic, Max, that we can
Yes.
dive into. But that was just something that like I found cool. But anyways, so that's like the good sequence. Now let's say because you brought up like, oh, you're arguing this is Sente, and let's say White says it's not Sente, and they play somewhere
Exactly.
else.
Right.
What's
And
going to happen?
this is a
Max?
very valid question, right? We have to check. I can't we can't just be saying, oh, well, White's going to have to respond. Well, let's find out why.
Mm-hmm.
So let's assume like maybe White says, oh, I'm going to ignore you on that side. I will do my own thing on this side for whatever. Pick your favorite sequence up there. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
This means Tanuki. And okay, now what can Black do? This is quiz number 2 for Octo and Neil. What is Black's follow-up?
I'm gonna say that. Well, okay, now I'm gonna just think about it since I got it wrong last time. Well, to me, C18 is the obvious move because C18 is the one that, like, if White plays there, it makes White like more or less alive. But if Black plays there, then it causes all kinds of liberty issues.
Okay, Octo.
Are you saying we can kill White?
You tell me.
Yeah, you're the
Yeah.
Don. You tell us, bud.
So I mean, without any prompt, the first thing I would even consider is very similarly, like we saw in our diagrams before, is kind of a placement to Suji at B14. But if we're going along with the hints of trying to reduce liberties, I think the candidates would be C18 or C14. Those are two different ways to reduce those liberties.
Sure.
I wanted to say C14, but I don't know. Neil is kind of swaying me towards C18,
Oh.
but I don't know if I fully believe that or not.
Are you gonna let this cue persuade you? this proto-dawn, if you will.
Well, it is C18. At least C18 is a very good move. Of course, black can do whatever black wants. But in terms of the threat, there's a threat that this D18 unanswered is implying, a very direct one. So let's look at what happens. It seems very innocuous. It seems like there couldn't be like how is there a disaster here? How is white having trouble?
And to quickly highlight
yeah.
back to like the topic at hand, before move 7 here, white has 5 liberties. So by playing C18, now there's 4 liberties. So issue right there. So continue.
Yeah, coincidence? You make the call. Like I leave that as an open question, but enough of these positions come up. It's like 5. But yeah, so what can white do, right? So the easy move to eliminate is white can't exactly play B18. At least white cannot play it for free. This would be an exchange. And the exchange would be, the easiest one would just be black can cut here, and white has to, let's say, connect like this. There are other ways. It might be some details about a ko here. I don't care about that. Yeah. Eventually, white has to live, actually in gote,
and then
after playing B18.
Sorry, can you just show if white doesn't connect? Let's say they Atari at B12.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if white doesn't connect, then after this exchange, which normally would be a possibly okay exchange for white can live. There are ways to live. Let's be nice. Whoops. Oh, shoot. White can live easily like this, for example. But the important exchange that we really dislike for white is that this B18 stone is gone. It wasn't even traded away. It just was a pass.
So the issue isn't
be a blunder here.
The issue isn't losing C17, that L group. The issue is B18.
Yes.
So when I was trying to read all this out, I was worried about playing B12 immediately, not B18. That's why I was asking, does white actually die? Because it looks like white can make a trade, which is unfortunate because it was white's corner. But you kind of made it sound like the whole thing collapses, but B12 looks very suspicious.
B12 would be a way to live. Yeah, so
right.
White can live. And in the end, probably what happens is, I suppose White can do this and just barely squeaks by. I would assume living. Black is too thin around here to try to do a real kill. Nor would Black want to. Black can just solidify this territory. So, yes, White can live, but all of the C18 attack that Black has, this is the threat. So this is the thing. It only has to be big enough of a follow-up that it makes White's choice to ignore D18 kind of a bad idea, right? So, like, that's all. So it's not as severe as maybe you were thinking, Octo. I wasn't reading masterminding some kill here.
I was actually thinking instead of Black playing B11, now they push at C14 because they're going to cause even more of a liberty problem against those other stones.
True.
But
that's
White
true.
can be a little sneaky.
Whole bunch of ways. Just throwing one out there for you. But
yeah, not what I was thinking. But it's fine. It doesn't matter. We don't have to do any more. But yeah, I think White has some clever ways of partially recovering.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but like here, or go through the sequence where Black plays B11 and then he goes back to B18. Like now, like Black could play C12, and then White will connect, and then Black could play like D13, and now that's even like the smaller trade is like this is now like fully sealed off, whereas before White could still technically push at like D13 maybe and like kind of sneak out at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's still a trade, like you're saying, Octo. It's not like a complete collapse in the corner, but White was slightly more reduced, and you got to seal off a bit more of the top side and make like the C11 like stones a bit thicker and stronger.
Cool.
Yeah, what I like about this example is it knowing about thickness, right? Or this flavor of thickness. It's not always claiming that it's the thing you're trying to have, right? It's just pointing your eyes or your mind at what it could even be, at what it is. And so this D18 is the thinnest move that's ever been played, right? It's 2 cutting points, and it has no really good way of actually living as a stone in the future. But it's aware of the then thinness in white's position, and that back and forth between thick and thin, hovering around 4 to 6 liberties, but 5 being kind of like the sweet spot. That's how a thin move like this can be thickness aware. Yeah,
Mhm.
and so it's one more example of the variedness of this idea, and it starts very stupid as an idea, but it turns into very many different things when you think about it enough.
Max, if you can pass me control. Moving on to another
Yeah.
point in this game where we can highlight 5 liberties. Oops, we are not on the game tree. Hold on. Okay, we're close now. So all this stuff happens, and then Lox plays this move down here. Now, I knew for a while there was some issue here. I just like forgot about it, whatever. But this move is like highlighting the fact that there's a weakness here, because if we look back at our our new proverb, there's a lack of 5 liberties. Yes, the group is strong and connected, but it's harassing what is actually occurring here. And it essentially, what happens here in the game is, well, here's the game line. I play out this, and I realize that I can't save this group anymore. And even if I were to connect, I think, what was the issue, Max? I think it's
White can J2 and then kind of clamp, and then E2, and the whole position reduces down to a 1-eye.
Got it.
J2 was actually the AI move instead of H2.
Yep.
Because you can escape to the right, or if you block, then white attaches at G2, which is about to just cut off the whole position.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was like another point where, instead of playing like B14 here and being like, oh, I found this Tsuji, it's like, let's just pause and think, like, okay, let's count. Let's like look around the board. What do I need to do? Do I have any weaknesses? Well, what's weak? It's like, well, my top right corner is fine. My top group is fine. I mean, clearly my stones in center got cut off, but whatever. It's like, well, then what about this group down here? It's like, well, it's lacking 5 liberties now. So I should maybe come back and do something. Not saying that the answer is, aha, connect, and now everything
Right.
has 5. Now it's probably like play J2 itself and make that eye shape. But, how do you find that? And it's like, well, if we use 5 liberties, there's an issue here. It's like, well, what if white plays here? It's like, oh, crap. There's a problem. And that, that's exactly what happened in the game. It's like, oh, now I'm a sad little Pagogo, and I get to lose a game because of it. But yeah. 5, it's everywhere, Max. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
You're 5 done. This is the 5th episode.
Oh.
I reached 5Q last week and then lost it almost immediately. But we're not going to talk about that. It's everywhere. We have 5 fingers on our hands.
Oh, whoa.
Next week we'll have a 5th host. We're just going to keep adding hosts. More and more people.
Like until we reach 5, and then we're gonna stop.
Yeah, because then it's perfect.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Any more things we want to discuss about 5 liberties here? We've been talking for almost an hour and a half now on 5 Liberties.
I have one quick question, which is that given that, Max, you said that you like to, leave a group that's like hard to attack. I'm curious, do you identify at all with the Amashi style, which we talked about in a previous episode? Do you identify with like using that style at all?
Actually, no. I have trouble thinking in that way, and I have trouble with those opponents. And that's because Amashi style is very good at the exact thing that a thickness-based attacking player is supposed to be good at doing, right? They don't do the attacks; they do the defense half of it. But skilled Amashi players, you can't actually attack them. Like you have to do something else. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out as a Go player like what that was. And it's very outside the this topic because the real idea, I'll just like a little spoiler. The real idea is if you're going to beat that kind of strategy, you need to then flip it and turn into using the thickness as a negotiating instrument instead of using it as a weapon. And that's very hard.
Sorry,
conceptually.
just as a quick reminder, the Amashi style is essentially like purposely playing near thickness, or am I like butchering that?
No, you're kind of right. Actually, that's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
It's playing a lot. It's not trick moves. They're all real. It's a real style. Like it's good. It's honest moves. But the moves are geared towards kind of tempting the opponent to attacking improperly. It's like, don't you want to attack me? You can attack me. And then but still the moves are real. There's no trickery going on. But the opponent tricks themselves, and then they attack too soon, and then there's a counter attack or it just gets flipped on them, right? They end up with nothing because their attack just was the wrong direction. And doing that repeatedly for the whole game at all positions of the game, it's a very difficult style. Not for Q players.
Yeah, no, definitely not. The only way to really understand this strategy is to go back to our previous episode and listen to the entire thing.
Yes.
Sorry, which episode is that, Neil? Episode 4?
I think it was. This is one of the rare times that it's not 5.
Yes.
That sounds terrifying, Max. If it's like, oh, we know what thickness is, it's supposed to be used for attacking, and through that we're gonna profit in some way potentially, and then Amashi style comes along, it's like, no, you're not gonna get anything. You're like, what? You just like destroyed my truth in my world.
Yeah, so that kind of player, they really do understand the game in the same way that a thickness mentality would be, but they choose the other half of the discussion to play the moves, right? So they know the counterpoint to maybe the more fundamental ideas of thickness. They're like, oh, I know what that is. Do you know the other thing about that? And usually the answer is no, I didn't think about that because it's very complicated.
All right. Well, we've been talking for a long time. I think that's about it for the episode. Wouldn't you guys say?
I'd say so.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on and talking to us, Max. I mean, really appreciate it, and very fun topic to talk about. And
Thanks.
I'm
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm sure we'll talk more in the future on more hot topics like Gote is good and Sente is bad. Very hot,
Yes.
very controversial takes, Max. But that's a whole other episode. So,
Yes,
all right.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I feel like I learned a lot, and I am gonna go try and get killed. For
in game,
leaving my
in
group
game,
for too long.
in game.
Oh, yeah, right. In game. No. I'm gonna stay alive in real life. But no, I'm gonna play some games. I'm gonna have a thick group, and I'm gonna like leave it as long as I can. And at some point, one of these games it's gonna die. I'm gonna be like, Max is gonna be so proud of me.
By the
Wait, I
way,
thought that was every game.
by the way,
What?
Max, I love how
I'm
you
doing it all wrong.
how like you talk about losses where you're like, oh, you lost this way, that's an achievement. Like a little Xbox notification comes up, you're like, you lost in a shitty way.
Yeah.
You're like, yay, we got the achievement. Meanwhile, everyone else is like, I lost, and you're like, no, that's good, you lost in a new way.
Yep.
Actually, talking about that made me realize it might be more common than you realize. I review so many games every single week, and I think it's a language thing because I'm constantly screaming at people like, no, this move is too slow. Maybe it's too thick. Maybe they're playing
True.
too many thick moves, and that causes them to lose. I
Yeah.
shouldn't think of it in terms of speed. I should actually be thinking of it in terms of thickness.
Yeah, that's your goal for this Friday or Octo or whenever you stream next. Instead of saying slow move, you're like, it's too thick.
Too thick.
Yep.
All right. Any closing words for us, Max? Any more words of wisdom before we log off?
No, I'm satisfied. This is fun.
Perfect. Well,
Thank you so much.
that's been
Yeah, thank you.
episode 5 of Don in the Queue. Catch you guys next time.